Wonder about the future and how you'll be working and learning? Welcome to You in 2042, the future of work, with your host, Danielle Wallace.
Hello and welcome to You in 2042, the future of work. Joining me today is Desiree Goldie.
Glad to be here, Danielle, first of all. Also, I am Desiree Goldie. I'm the Director of Marketing and Culture at ZRG Partners. We're a global talent advisory firm. I've kind of had a non-linear path in my life. I worked in hospitality for many, many years and then decided to get into the talent space. And I did that because of my passion for people and talent and how the world of work kind of was shaping out in that time period. This was like 2015. And I really saw a need for there to be this diversity, equity, inclusion lens that wasn't happening in so many spaces. And so I got into talent, which was really interesting because I come from hospitality and had recruited hundreds of people, but needed to take a step back and figure out that I didn't know everything about recruiting, and really got heavy into it and have worked my way up through the ranks since that time period through talent operations and culture and data and analytics on to now working on the marketing side of talent, which is super, super interesting. I live in Austin, Texas with my wife and 2 dogs, and just happy to always talk about this subject.
Amazing. What's really interesting is within that lens of experience, I can imagine that you have a unique lens with which to see the world of work and all the changes. And I'd love to get your thoughts perhaps on what this future world might be, as I think about 2042 or the path to get there. What might we see?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. For me, I see this definite shift even right now in 2025 as we're moving away from the world where organizations are key and everybody, fawns over organizations and is so excited by them. Where we, back in the day when my mom wanted to work for Ford, it was like a super exciting time to want to work at a certain company. And I think we're switching to this world of work where people focus is becoming so important, right? And that people focus switches us to topics like diversity, inclusion, and belonging. And then we're seeing this backlash right now. I do think it sorts itself out. And I always say to people, I don't care what you call it. You can call it DEI, you can call it whatever you want. But we are getting to this people sort of focus, and that organizations and cultures need to be more intentional about how they bring people into work, how they have empathy and inclusion in their environments. And I think that's going to be key to organizations being successful. It's a hard road for many organizations who haven't lived that kind of existence for so many years, but we definitely are going to see that shift come forward as we move towards 2042.
And with those changing shifts, I really appreciate that increased people focused and this more intentional and inclusive and empathetic organizations. What might we also see then from the impact of all these changes that are happening as it relates to DE&I or communication and leadership?
Yeah, so I think that DEI becomes, in 2020, first of all, everybody had been doing this work anyway before 2020, right? We'd all been doing the work. People who were diversity focused were always putting people forward and trying to champion the cause. But in 2020, we got all the backing of the world because of things that happened. Some unique things like George Floyd happened. And then all of a sudden, organizations were all over it as well. And I think that the work that we did in that time period set the stage and taught us how we were doing it wrong, right? We were putting diverse people in the seat, but we weren't actually giving them a sense of inclusion and belonging. We were talking about numbers only, and that goes away from that people focus. And that didn't work, right? And organizations stepped back. They got rid of people. Now we're getting rid of DEI, chief diversity officers quickly. We're doing a lot of that because how we set the system up didn't make sense, really, right? It didn't really serve the need at the end. I mean, we can talk about the McKinsey report that everybody talks about all the time about the fact that diverse teams perform better and are more innovative than anybody else. Everybody knows the data. It's just, how do you get there? And I think this change is going to be essential to teach leaders as we go on about how to create an inclusive environment, right? It sounds simple, right? Just bring everybody on, make it sure everybody's collaborating and feels like they belong, but there needs to be intention and strategy to it. And we essentially have said, like, okay, we want you to have this inclusive environment, but we haven't taught people how to do that. And there are so many practitioners out here doing the work that I admire and are doing great work, including myself. And I think that the more we talk about it, the more we put strategy to it, the more inclusive environments we'll have as we go towards 2042. And the managers, I always talk about the middle manager, right? He gets a team, he's come from a job that he's never managed before. I think that training and communication about what that means to lead an inclusive team is going to be essential. And it's going to be imperative that organizations take the time and the energy and the money to invest in that training.
And building on that point, that investment now really then paves the way, especially speak about those middle managers. This is the future. Like, that is our leaders and the key decision makers. So then, if you could recommend one focus area for leaders as they navigate, what might that be?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing for me because I could pull out so many things, but I always talk about empathy and authenticity as a strategy. And I think if leaders could take a minute just to focus on empathy and authenticity, they would change their teams immediately, right? The empathetic and authentic leader that says, I have flaws, I don't know how to do this, we're going to work this out together. Oh, it's okay if your kid is sick. It's okay if you need to take the time. That changes a team dynamic immediately, right? And I still think we haven't learned that lesson. We still see leaders fighting against the need to do that, especially when we talk about remote work and flexibility and all of these things that we're still super concentrated on since the pandemic. We're almost reverse engineering since the pandemic. We're going backwards, right? Because we're not focusing on that empathy and authenticity in work. And if we could just do that one thing, I think we would be better off. But it's a taught skill set, right? You think empathy is normal. You probably have empathy for your friends and family, but how do you have empathy at work, right? It's a very different skill set. And not everybody has it immediately. And we need to be able to teach that. And it's hard to teach, but it is teachable. And it's definitely something we need to be working towards.
That's such a good point, because empathy and authenticity truly do pave the way for that future and can create that immediate change in organizations now. I love this, Desiree. Thank you.
You're welcome. I think that it's so easy to say, like, okay, we're going to have the metrics and we're going to do all these things. How about be human? Right? Be a human to other humans. If we could just do that, would the world change? Never mind just the workplace, right? If we could just be a human to other humans, the world would change. But we fight against that for profits and all these other things. And I think we take that as two different things. You get profits by being empathetic and authentic, right? And then the profits come. If we could just correlate the two in the world, I think it would make a better place and a better workplace for everyone.
So true. Amazing. Desiree, where can people learn more about you?
Yeah, so my LinkedIn is Desiree Goldie. You can find me. It's where I spend a ton of my time. So please come connect, follow. I would love for you to enjoy the content there. I also have a website. It's dobetterconsulting.net. Please join our newsletter there. We'd love to see you there as well. And, I don't spend as much time on the other socials right now because I'm kind of uninvested in them as they get a little crazy. But I am on Blue Sky at Do Better. So please follow me there as well.
Thank you so much. And those details are also in the show notes. Desiree, I love the conversation, and I like that rallying cry of being more human. I think that really...
Instructional design.
Thank you so much.
I agree. Thank you so much, Danielle.
Thank you for being a part of the future. Subscribe now to stay current.